A while ago I was planning on doing a Cowboy Bebop video. I was going to unbox it and then show the very first episode of the show. Very similar to what I did with the series of Digimon Tri. However, a lot of projects came up, copyright restrictions, and a whole lot of other things, so I just never really had the chance to be able to do this. However, I am not giving up on a Cowboy Bebop video. I figured I would review a very special episode that may or may not fit in with the theme of this month. I'll leave that for you to decide. Before we get into this episode, it's probably a good idea to give a basic background of what this series is all about. When the series first starts, our main characters are Spike and Jet. They are on board a spaceship known as Bebop. I wonder if their first one was named Rocksteady. Oh, come on. There's no way I was the only person that ever thought of this. Seriously? The pair are bounty hunters, cruising the galaxy for their next day's pay. Along the way, they get a dog named Ein, probably spelled differently, a femme fatale named Faye, my personal favorite, and a hacking whiz known as Edward. Their latest adventure takes them to Jupiter. The episode opens with a Native American father and son looking into the night sky. The son spots a shooting star, but the father says to the boy, "That is the tear of a warrior, a lost soul who has finished his battle, but has still yet to find peace." We pan up to a mysterious ship with a sinister figure inside. He has appeared in one other episode, a character known as Vicious, who used to be a good friend of Spike. He was contacted by a person on Callisto directly to pick up the shipment of a drug called Red Eye. Vicious's advisors want to know why he was specifically requested. It was because this person was a veteran of Titan, one of the moons on Jupiter. Vicious also was a veteran. They even worked together during the war. The advisors think that this is a bad idea and insist on bringing Lynn for backup. As Vicious leaves, his advisors give him one last piece of advice.
Remember, a snake cannot eat a dragon.
He pays little heed to it and goes. We snap to Bebop to find Spike waking up to intense heat. He goes to talk to Jet, who gives Spike a note stating that Faye has left. Spike is quite happy about this until he realizes that she took out all the Freon and escaped with their money. Spike doesn't stand for this and sends Edward to find her. She stumbles upon a code name, Julia. Spike immediately takes notice and wants to know where the signal is coming from. Edward finds it's coming from the Blue Crow on Callisto. Before she can find any more, she has cut off. Spike jumps into action to head down there. Jet is confused as Julia is a rather common name. I'll have to take your word for it. I haven't run into too many Julias. And tries to get Spike back on finding Faye. Like Vicious, though, he doesn't care. Jet gives him an ultimatum, but Spike still doesn't care that he will be separated from the group. We follow Spike down to the planet's surface. There is very little to speak of. It's sparsely populated, and once great buildings are falling into decay. The camera pans into Raster House, where we find Faye slowly drinking away her sorrows. On the outside, we jump back to Spike, trying to get a lead on Julia. He's told there is one Julia that hangs around a local bar. Spike, however, finds that this Julia is named Julius. I just have to laugh at this because I've run into the same mistake myself. Somebody got my name mixed up and ended up calling me Julius instead of Julia. So that is a thing that can happen. Points on for authenticity. Julius is a, femboy? Drag queen? I don't know. Feel free to give me your own interpretation on this one. He offers Spike his, shall we say, services, but Spike refuses. A few other members of Julius's group show up. In going to another corner, Julius says to talk to Grimm, as he goes with women sometimes. He's a sax player at the Raster House. We jump back to Faye, where she seems to be coming down with a cold. A voice from behind her says, "Take care." According to the sax player, if you don't say "take care" after a sneeze, the person will turn into a fairy. Which Faye says she already is a fairy. He shrugs it off and offers her his coat. She sees this as a come-on and calls him out. However, He doesn't like women, but he does offer her some advice. Women are very scarce in this area, and she should be watched out for. At this, she throws the jacket back at him and leaves the bar. With Spike, he is still wandering the streets in search of Julia. He asks a man on the street who isn't very helpful. Spike walks away, but is pursued by a mysterious man and a small gang. Spike knows he's being followed and leads them all down an alley. When Spike confronts them, the man states, "You're vicious," and they want the goods. At this, Spike goes into a rage, beating up all the gang with ease. Everyone leaves, except the leader, which Spike interrogates. The man heard about the red eye and wanted the money for it. Spike asks about the name Julia, to which the man replies,
Sounds like some sleazy wench's name, doesn't it?
"I think he needs one more punch." Thank you. We find that Jet has also made it to the planet. He steps into a bar with a waiter, and some guy passed out are the only patrons. He orders whiskey with lime when he focuses on the barely coming in TV. On it is a show for bounty hunters. Their special is an escaped convict whose statute of limitations is about to run out, so the bounty on him is worth a lot. When they show the picture, he looks a lot like the sax player Faye's been hanging around with. Out of instinct, Jet tells Spike about the scoop, but quickly remembers Spike isn't going to answer. In disgust, Jet asks the bar owner to turn off the TV. However, the bartender reassures him that he's safe here. This planet is a hideout for many criminals. Back on Faye, which I can't imagine is very warm here, is walking down an alleyway when she is surrounded by the same man who thought Spike was vicious. She puts on her gloves in the sexiest way possible, then sends them on a quick trip to Pound Town. Or at least she would have if the sax player didn't come in to save her. He takes her back to his apartment, to which he wonders why she trusts him. The main reason is his lack of interest in women, and if he's a mugger, she would kill him. With this, the pair is at an understanding. Faye spots this music box, but the sax player says it's broken. He sets out 2 drinks while he tries to figure out her story. Not gonna lie, there's some rather steamy shots of Faye here. Not only does that room look like it's really hot and humid, but just look at the positions that she's in throughout this scene. She basically states it's better off to be alone. Comrades have a way of adding more problems than are needed. The sax player jumps in saying she was afraid of abandonment, and so she abandoned them. Faye then wonders at why she is so willing to tell them. With a look in each other's eyes, there is another standing. Another sneezing attack, and he prevents her from turning into a fairy. He suggests a shower, to which she's too worried about peeping Toms. He figures he'll go instead, jokingly warning her not to be the peeping Tom herself. She has a look around, trying to figure out who this guy is. The phone rings, only to leave a message that it's vicious with the delivery. We see him put down the phone, only for Spike to wonder why he's using the name Julia. There is a standoff when Lynn gets in the way. They both stand there squaring each other up, only for Lynn to fire first, leaving Spike out to die. Back with Faye, she confronts the sax player to get a rather odd surprise. He has a female chest. I do believe a few trans men would like to know your binding secrets here. There's no bulge in any other shot with them? Yeah, I think I'll just stick with non-binary pronouns for now. With this, Faye immediately thinks that they are a woman, until she sees they still have male genitalia. She asks,
"Which one are you?"
I'm both at once, and I'm neither one.
That's the end of part 1. Part 2, there is a rather interesting dialogue to introduce the next episode.
Hey, how are men and women different?
I think women are hiding more vital secrets than men are.
But there are women who aren't feminine.
And men who aren't masculine.
What about those who aren't usually feminine but show that side of themselves in some chance circumstance? I like that.
Really?
I'm not talking about you.
Who then?
Maybe it's me.
Maybe it's me.
I find this rather interesting to see all this from a show back in 1998. Sure, this show is a little more centered towards adults, so they can get away with a bit more, but I can't imagine there was a lot of media back then tackling some of these subjects. Take Julius and his posse, for instance. They're not really portrayed in a negative light. They're just portrayed as something that Spike isn't into. There isn't really any shame for having a taste for this sort of thing. And they don't seem to shame the character for having this taste either. And then we have Grimm, who Julius hints at as being bisexual, but when Faye actually meets them, it turns out that he's gay. Faye isn't disturbed by this. In fact, she's almost kind of relieved by it. It's like, oh, okay, I'm off the menu, no problem. However, I have a feeling that scene with Grimm in the shower may come across as kind of insensitive these days. Though Grimm does correct Faye in saying that there is some sort of non-binary, genderless, or maybe agender identity that they go by, but I have a feeling Faye asking which one are you is going to be kind of triggering to a few people. All the same, this is a really good cliffhanger. Let's just jump right into part 2, shall we? Part 2 has a basic summary of part 1, which I will forgo here. It starts with Grimm giving their story. They were involved in a war on Titan. Not an attack on Titan. They were even in the same squad as Vicious. He told Grimm, "You don't need comrades." But Grimm always liked that word, comrade. They flash back to when they first met Vicious. He was carrying a small music box, and they really liked the tune. Vicious gives it to them after some thought, then quickly turns around, ready to strike with a knife. However, Vicious just killed a scorpion ready to strike. After the war, they were imprisoned on counts of espionage. They heard a rumor that it was Vicious who testified against them. From this, they went insane. The prison issued them a new drug, which threw their hormones out of whack, and so they're stuck between male and female. They mysteriously state that Faye is the second person they ever told about Vicious, as well as their hormone issue. Faye then wants to know, why are they going to see Vicious? Grimm just simply wants to know if Vicious did testify against them. Faye knows Vicious will kill them, but Grimm doesn't care. What happens next, I'm still confused about. Faye then takes her gun and tries to kill Grimm? They are too quick, though, and Faye is quickly subdued. We warp to Jet, who has found a lead on Faye. The cleaner saw her go off with Grimm. He then says she was sitting in Julia's same spot.
Julia? About 2 years ago, she wandered in out of the blue. A month later, she disappeared.
Yeah? What kind of girl was she?
She was a real woman.
It then goes into a flashback. After a shootout, Spike lost one of his eyes. As such, they are 2 different colors. Aside from that, we get a better glimpse at this Julia. Oh, no, not like that, no! Spike then begins to wake up. By the way, is it just me or did anybody else find this very obvious? When people get shot in this show, there is a lot of blood. Plus, being on top of snow, the blood would have been even more obvious. He wakes up to find that he was shot with a sleeping dart. With an effort, he gets up to have his first cigarette of the day. Jet continues the search when he bumps into the guy beaten by Spike and Faye. Jet asks him for directions, but after seeing it's another foreigner, walks away to find an honest job. It's not a complete waste, as Jet finds Grimm's apartment. Not sure what to expect, he keeps his gun out. He hears rustling behind one of the doors. He opens it expecting a fight, to find Faye passed out on the bed. He wakes her to try to get some answers. He turns her over to see she is handcuffed.
Oh, I get it. He's one of those kind of guys, huh?
What are you talking about? You mean Gren? He's not like anyone else.
We see Spike fly in his ship, trying to get Vicious's code. He is unsuccessful when Jet comes in. Jet is a lead on a new bounty, but Spike doesn't care. Until he mentions that same person is the one that put out the code name Julia. Jet even throws out that if he catches Grimm, he will let Spike back in the group. On the ground, Vicious calls Grimm again, stating where the drop zone is. Grimm says they will send a woman to pick it up. I just love how clever this is. Vicious is a little annoyed as he wanted to see Grimm in person, but goes on ahead with it. Faye and Jet head back to Bebop. En route, they talk about this Julia. There is very little to tell, as Jet only knows she has control over Spike. At the drop-off zone, the woman... Let's be honest, we all know it's Grimm in there. However, this time around, I want to know his binding secrets, as Grimm looks fantastic in that dress. Grimm drops off the red eye, and in exchange gives Grimm Titan Opal. I'm going to assume this is a cure for their condition. Vicious wants this woman to send Grim his regards. Grim then asks, did he really testify against them? Grim then slides the case of Opal to Vicious, shooting it along the way. Turns out it was a bomb. When the explosion goes off, Spike heads that way out of instinct. Back on the roof, the woman's veil blows off, to which Vicious recognizes Grim. Speaking from my experience about having my hormones changed, the voice will definitely remain the same. If you want to change it, that's something you gotta do on your own. However, to have as well developed breasts that Grim has, they would have had to have been exposed to a hormonal imbalance for probably a year or two. And even then, that's probably not the only thing that would change. They would probably get a more feminine figure, their face would probably look a lot different. But notice that I used the word probably here because there's so many variations in the human body and affects everyone a little differently. But all the same, I feel like Vicious was way too quick to realize, oh yeah, that's Grim. Grim and Julia were good friends. As soon as she heard that the music box was from Vicious, she told Grim to open it. Inside was a transmitter. Vicious shrugs it off, saying, so what? Grim then goes into why they went insane in prison. They were comrades. That develops a special kind of friendship. I think they call it esprit de corps. To which Vicious says he never believed in such friendship. Having enough, Grim fires at Vicious. Lynn then steps in to save him, but takes the bullet. Notice the blood. Spike's ship flies overhead, which gives Grim enough time to escape. Vicious then takes the red eye and leaves, not caring for Lynn's death. From there, we get an awesome fight sequence in the air. Spike goes after Vicious, and is then assisted by Grim. Grim is hit and is slowly going down. From there, Vicious takes Spike head-on. Just then, the music box plays inside Vicious's craft. It sets off an explosion, crippling the wing, but he manages to make it out alive. With Vicious gone, Spike changes his attention to Grim. They are alive, but just barely. Spike wants to know where Julia is. Nah, it was too obvious. They just simply say, Julia is gone, before coughing up blood. Spike attempts to call an ambulance, but Grim steadies his hand. They don't have much time left, and make one final request, to be towed back to Titan, the only place they have ever known true friendship. While Spike doesn't think Grim can make it, he decides to honor their wishes. While he never met him, Julia would talk about him all the time.
Your eyes are different colors. I remember her saying that. Said you get a strange feeling if you keep looking straight into his eyes.
Where'd you meet her? Where was she?
Right on the corner bar stool. She'd slip in when I wasn't looking. She'd ask me to play the same song every time she came in. And then she would smile. Oh, what a smile. So sad. So beautiful.
With that, Grim is then towed to Titan. They're dead before they ever make it. I'm not gonna lie, but in making this review, seeing Grim die was honestly a lot more emotional than when I first saw it. It's something that I can kind of relate to on a personal level. True, it's not to this scale, but I've had good friends that have betrayed me, and I've kind of lived in a world where I try to claim innocence, but everybody calls me guilty. That's just getting a little too personal, isn't it? Spike then pulls up to the Bebop. Jet asks what he brought with him. Spike replies, nothing. But Jet takes him on anyway. We then go back to where this episode began, with the Native Americans looking up at the tear of a warrior. Grim's battle is finally complete, but their souls still won't rest. From there, the camera pans up, and the credits roll. As for the episode itself, you can tell that they wanted this to be extra special. Not only is it a two-parter, so they had more time to be able to tell a story, but it felt like there was also a much deeper meaning behind it as well. This is a little different from the norm, as usually the episodes are just quick little adventures where the group either gets the bounty or doesn't get the bounty, and then they just cruise on to the next place. However, there are a few exceptions. For instance, the episode that introduces the character of Vicious is also very much story-driven like this episode. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy these fun little adventures, especially if Faye is the center of attention. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little video, and I hope that this manga style of animation. It wasn't too distracting. I can't imagine being able to review this in any other way on YouTube. But that's another problem for another day. Until next time, do you have a comrade?